welcome. Can you believe it? There's 2 months left of 2022. Welcome, Katlego. It's nice to have you. If you look at what clients and what the conversations is currently about, where would you focus on?
Thank you, Theo. Thank you. It's good to be here. I think currently load shedding is a problem. It's on everybody's minds. It's a problem to everyone, especially the economy. Your thoughts around what's happening there?
Certainly it's a problem. Katlego, I think we got hit badly in the last number of weeks now. And yes, it does have an impact on the economy. It takes a growth factor away from our potential growth rate. And it's uncomfortable. It makes life difficult. But just a few things around that. If I look at some of the projections, I think that we need to kind of make peace with the fact that we will have load shedding until well into 2024. So therefore, it's going to be quite a while. And hopefully by then it will start to get a bit better. The background obviously is that we've got an old fleet supplying the base load, and that fleet keeps on breaking down, and the new power stations are certainly not up to speed. So this is going to take longer. But I do think there was a major announcement in October by Eskom that people didn't really look at that much. And I think that's part and parcel of where the solution lies. Eskom announced that they've got, obviously Eskom owns a lot of land close to their power stations and their power infrastructure. And they've announced a program whereby they will lease land to a private generation company. Why lease land close to Eskom? Because they can tap into the Eskom infrastructure. But then this company will generate power and will have the right to sell that power to anybody else anywhere in the system. So therefore it's called wheeling. But this means there's a number of consequences there, and there's a few things that we need to realize. So if I build a generation capacity, I can then agree with somebody completely in another part of South Africa, a mine or a big industrial company or a factory, and agree terms of supplying electricity outside of NERSA's price arrangement, outside of anybody else, and I use Eskom's transmission mechanism to tap into the power grid, and that person then takes the power out of the grid. So there's a fee for this, and everybody that is involved in this is happy with that fee. But what that does, it means that private generating entities can agree with consumers, agree price and terms, and use Eskom's infrastructure. The next step that will happen is there will start to become a market for power outside of Eskom. So therefore, if I'm a big consumer of power, I can go and negotiate to somebody that produces power, negotiate terms, pricing, delivery mechanism, and use Eskom's infrastructure. So this is a massive step forward in freeing up or liberalizing South Africa's energy infrastructure. And I think kind of people missed the size of the announcement and the amount of megawatts that's involved here. But I think that's the kind of steps where our solution will lie. Secondly, there was by one of the banks, Standard Bank, had an analysis about the power utilization from Eskom in South Africa versus the GDP. And we are almost 30% less reliant on Eskom to generate the same amount of GDP. So that also shows you that all these solar panels, people using more efficient infrastructure is taking Eskom's role, making it less. But short term, or let's say medium term, Eskom is a major problem. It is something that we'll have to live by, and it does take away not only investment confidence, but curtails economic activity. Eskom's problems are going to be with us still at least the middle of 2024, and well, might even be longer. But don't make any decisions, even if it's on your home, residential, or in your business, on the basis that this Eskom load shedding will stop anytime soon. It's going to be with us still at least the middle of 2024.
Thanks for that, Theo. I agree. At least we are seeing some positive development there. And then in October, the president also came out and gave us his response on how he's going to handle the recommendations by the Zondo Commission. Your thoughts around what's happening around corruption and so on in our country?
Look, I think if we look back in the last few weeks, and I'm not only looking at the president's reaction to the Zondo Commission, but if you look back at the last 6 or 8 weeks, keep at the back of your mind that 2 of the 3 Gupta brothers are still in jail. So just we tend to forget that 2 of the 3 are sitting in jails in the Middle East. We forget that. In the last weeks, we had one of our ministers, Minister Zwane, in a criminal case in the court. We had a previous police commissioner, criminal case in the court. CEO of Eskom, criminal case in the court. Marcus Jooste, action being taken. So you might or might not agree with his actions, you might or might not agree with the way it's being handled, but the point is, slowly but surely, the wheels of justice are turning. And more of these people are starting to get closer and closer to criminal court cases. And I think the focus of that means that we are making progress. We've also seen, both from the president as well as the Minister of Finance, that there is serious allocation of money, and we're almost seeing the rebirth of the scorpions, whereby certain directorates within National Prosecuting Authority is getting a more permanent role, and we're slowly seeing some of the rules and regulations being tightened around what these guys can do and cannot do. So my view is it's a slow process, but just as we underestimated the effect of state capture in the Zuma years, we are underestimating the steps that are being taken to rectify this. Unfortunately, this comes against the background of a weak international economy, inflation pressures worldwide, and capital being scarce, markets are down. So it's headwinds, but there are moves afoot to take action. The sad part is it's taking a lot longer than everybody expected. We obviously wanted quicker, harsher, more serious action, but it's slowly coming to the fore.
Yeah, I think that the main frustration there is the pace at which things are happening. But as you say, there are things happening. And then Minister Enoch Godongwana gave us his medium-term budget policy statement, in which he addressed a number of things, including Eskom's debt. Your thought around that?
Look, I think the question about Eskom's debt is a bit of a complicated question. Remember, in the last number of years, the minister always had to allocate capital to Eskom to service its debt. So there was almost an expense side to assist Eskom with servicing debt. What we see now is a move from government side to take some of those debt off Eskom's balance sheet and take it onto the Treasury's balance sheet. Now, what we have to remember is that, first of all, the GDP debt ratios, which are looking a lot better, it's still not great, it's still not where we want to be, but looking a lot better than in February, as far as I could read it, does not include that debt that the government wants to take on its own balance sheet. So there's an orange light there that needs clarification. Second point is, Eskom cannot service the full amount of debt. Eskom cannot service something around 400 billion. They need something like 200 billion to service. Like any other business, if you've got too much debt, you cannot get to research, development, maintenance, all of those things. That's where Eskom is. They've got too much debt. They struggle to do what normal businesses need to do. So that's around Eskom, which is the great news, is that we'll probably only see in the real budget in February how that mechanism is going to happen. But in the medium-term budget, there was a few things for me that stood out. Number one, the tax windfall of about 84 billion rand, which is nice that we have. And that's stronger, a stronger economy, specifically around company tax. Even the other elements of tax was up. VAT was a different issue, but the other elements was up. And the way that the government approached that is prudent in terms of where that money will go to. So it's on that, it's a prudent budget in that respect. What obviously is there, and that is not a surprise, is the fact that government's projections of economic growth is not where we need to be. 1.6% growth in the next 2 to 3 years is certainly not where we want to be. Was that a surprise? No. Is it disappointing? Sure, it's disappointing. We want to see more of that. But overall, I think given that where we are, there's no elements of being reckless, of being over-optimistic, of populist views. What is there is the so-called COVID grant of 350 Rand a month being extended for longer. And I think we need to make peace but with the fact that government will have to find a way to fund a longer process in terms of that. Can we afford it? On paper, no. But if you look at the impact of that, we probably cannot do without it. So that was the other side of the coin. Overall, given the economic environment, it was prudent. There's massive challenges ahead for us. The key challenge is we need to pick up our growth rate, and hopefully all the other steps that's been taken by government will assist in that. But that is our big problem currently. If we cannot grow the economy, government's position will be tight. It will be difficult to do what needs to be done if we cannot grow the economy.
Yeah, I concur. And then if we look globally, a lot has been happening. I think markets remain volatile amid concerns around inflation, interest rate hikes. There's even talks of a possible recession. But I think also interestingly is to see leadership around the world. Xi Jinping cementing his place in China, and then Liz Truss just lasting a few weeks in office. Your thoughts on our global?
Look, the global economy is under pressure, and there's various factors to it. But on the whole, it is a position whereby inflation's picking up, central banks are lifting interest rate, global growth are coming down, and that creates challenges. In China, the effect is Xi Jinping has almost cemented his place. If you look at this inner circle, they are all loyalists to him. So whatever his policies he believes in, he's going to push them forward and stronger. What we have to make peace with is a world where we have slower Chinese growth. Depending on if 20 years ago, the Chinese economy could grow at 8 or 10%, but it's now a much bigger economy. So to grow at 4.5%, you actually have to add more GDP than you had to add growing at 9% 20 years ago. It's still a great growth rate, but it's natural that it will slow down. What you're also going to find is with the current leadership structure, they're all loyalists to him, so he's probably going to do whatever he wants to do. He's going to do it more aggressively and more forcefully. Yes, the UK Liz Truss basically just dropped the ball, and hopefully we will get some stability now going forward. The Americans are getting ready for the midterm elections in November, which again will be interesting. The key discussion point here is to what extent are markets discounting the negative economic news? And that's where the question comes in. If you are a US investor in the US in a stock standard balanced fund, that means portion equities, portion bonds. This is since 1926. And why 26? That's when proper stats are available. Since 1926 to now, this is one of the 3 worst years for a balanced portfolio in the US. So therefore, your stock standard American investor is experiencing one of the 3 worst years in history. Now, something that's 1 in 50 or 1 in 100 years, it doesn't last. It shows you this is an anomaly. When will it turn? I've got no idea. Will it turn? Well, if the economy starts to pick up, certainly we will see some kind of reversion to the mean. The point, however, is that if you look at recession and markets, there's not a very strong link between economies going into recession or reporting recession and market performance. Recession is historic data telling you what happened in the economy. Financial markets try to look 24 or even 36 months ahead. So they try to discount 2-3 years down the line, whereas economic numbers usually is historic numbers. So be very careful to link that to. Usually when you hear we're now in the depth of the recession, financial markets discounted that 18 months ago and are starting to discount the way forward. So where does that leave us? It leaves us in a case where markets will be turbulent until there's a better visibility of earnings from companies and valuations. Valuations is a factor of interest rates, and the interest rate scenario is still very difficult simply because inflation keeps on going up.
I agree with your sentiments there, Theo. And then for our clients who needs to get their global allocation up, we're advising at the moment for them to rather look at converting their rands to pounds. Why? Because the level of the pound at the moment is much closer to the level we advise, which is 20 and 50 to the pound. And as we all know by now that the US dollar is very strong at the moment. In fact, it's at the strongest level that it's ever
decades.
been. Yeah. So that's why we're saying rather consider converting to pounds.
Instead of directly going into dollars. And you're dead right. If you take a basket of currencies, the US dollar is the strongest it's been in decades. The question there is Katlego, with US markets or world markets being down 20, 25, even more than that in certain cases, you now have to be very careful that you don't wait for the currency level and miss this very low markets. So it's difficult, and therefore I agree with you. Rather take the view not via the dollar, but via the pound or even the euro, and try to not focus too much on the currency, but rather on the fact that you buy assets now at a lot lower valuations than they were 6, 12 or 18 months ago. Does that mean it's the bottom? I don't know. Does that mean it's going to go up? I don't know. All I know is you get quality assets at a great valuation, and you should carefully look at that.
Agreed.
Thank you, Katlego. Thank you, everybody. As I said, there's 2 months left of the year. It's been a very turbulent year on financial markets. It's a difficult year, and we understand why people are hesitant, why people are uncomfortable. What we can commit to is that we take seriously how we structure portfolios, how you manage portfolios, and our own money is in the same portfolios as our clients' money.